Committee on the funding allocations to outside agency that is detailed in the document form.
Moved by Councillor Carr, seconded by Councillor Gardner. Debate, Councillor Grant.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I voiced my opinions at the Budget Steering Committee, but I'm a voting member, so I can voice them here as well. I personally don't believe that we should have taken on any new agencies, no matter how great they were, at the expense of the existing agencies. I think there's, to say it also don't favor, they need every dollar to, because it's completely run by volunteers, and they stretch every penny as far as they can go. To cut them back is very harmful, potential harm to that organization. So I can't support this because I don't think that we should have taken on any more agencies and then cut back on the existing. So I won't support it. Thank you.
Councillor Gardner.
Well, prior to the last election, during the debates in the library or anywhere else, all of us around this table talked about the value of the arts and culture. And everyone said they supported arts and culture. After being elected, we had a strategic planning session, and the same thing there. Arts and culture were included in one of the three values of priority that council took on. And that was arts and culture. That was part of the inclusion. Without warning, across the board, cuts have been made to at least 6 outside agencies, which are I identify as agriculture agencies, most of whom are managed by hard-working volunteers who cost the city nothing. But they must be totally discouraged right now, and I know some of them call me by the cuts, and they're just making ends meet at the side of stuff. As costs go up, we're cutting outside agency funding. I do agree with Councillor Thibault's assessment in the media that by cutting agencies across the board is taking the easy way out. Personally, I say, to say I support arts and culture as a council priority and then to cut their funding, for me, is hypocritical. So I can't support cutting funding to the arts and culture group. I would more be likely to support a return to the 2010 funding, which is $42,000 more than what the committee has come up with, and is a lot less than 1% on a $150 million budget. So I can't support the recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Carr.
Thank you, Your Worship. And as Chair of the Budget Steering Committee, I think it falls to me to talk about the actions contained within the committee report. And when I look at the organisations, look at all the organisations that we dealt with during the exercise, and I'd say that we were tougher on our own city departments than we ever were on any outside agency. And ask any one of our managers how tough we were on them in the budget process. And the cuts that they had to live with, to come in with a budget that's acceptable to the city of Cornwall, to the citizens who live here. And do I have to remind everyone of the pressures that were put on here, of the organizations that have been formed to act as a watchdog over council to make sure we don't spend more than we're supposed to, of the discussions we had about policing and fire, and how we've been subsidizing their budgets with the money that should more probably have gone to infrastructure. It's not an easy process. And if anyone thinks that because we won't reduce this amount to $500,000, $500,000 from those outside agencies, I will put you on notice right now. It's going to be very difficult to defend that $500,000 in the coming years. And what we're saying to many of these organizations is, you have to go out and you have to look to find money in other places. We will help you wherever we can. And I use Councillor Thibault for one example because he's working with one of these organizations to try and secure funding from another government agency. Is that still correct, Councillor Thibault? And a substantial amount of money. It's never easy. Councillor Gardner, I hear what you're saying. I read your comments in the paper and how you were, the comments you made. Well, you should have attended the meeting, and you didn't.
Order to the chair, please.
Sorry, with Your Worship, but sometimes we have to say what's on our mind. It's not an easy process. We are going to meet, and I just got an email from Mr. Fitzpatrick today. There's a meeting scheduled. Is it next Thursday, or is it this Thursday? It's St. Lawrence College.
May 17th.
May 17th, there's a meeting with St. Lawrence College to discuss our relationship with the college, and of course with Christiana, and how rental figures are arrived at. We're also going to have a meeting, I understand, I think sometime in the future with the Historical Society. And some of these organizations are asking for funds, and Councillor Shorts, who has rightly pointed it out more than once, they talked about, well, yeah, that's for our slush fund. There are no slush funds. And we will be removing those slush funds from every organization. Sounds tough, but that's the work we have to do. So, Your Worship, I have no problem proposing that we adopt the recommendations of the Budget Steering Committee. And I'm sorry for those who have been hurt by it, but better to have a reduction in funding than no funding at all. Thank you.
Point of clarification, just a clarifying comment that was made. It wasn't an EMS meeting, emergency manager.
No, Councillor, no, please, it's not a point of clarification, it's not a point of clarification, on my council, make their comments through the chair, without reflecting on the people's presence or absence. Councillor Murphy.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I'll be supporting this, but that doesn't mean I don't support the arts. It's, as I look at this, when I first heard of the amount, when council, before my term started this, I was surprised at the amount. Looked around at other communities. That's way more than a lot of other communities. And I'm not saying we shouldn't do it, but we also made, yes, we all did. Everyone that ran the election, we're going to support the arts. We also made a commitment to help the taxpayers keep their taxes down. This is a situation where something's got to give. You can't offer a low percent on your tax rate or a decrease, and then all of a sudden we're starting to spend here. You got to find that money. It's got to come from somewhere. It's unfortunate that it has to come at the hands of some of these groups. They're all great groups, but the fact that we're still funding them, I think, is a positive reflection of council as a whole's perception of arts in the community. The fact that we're not eliminating this completely, whereas other municipalities are finding that's what they got to do. I think we are doing a good job with this, and I commend the Budget Steering Committee. And I was also disturbed to hear that some of these agencies do have what they call a working reserve or a slush fund. How can they justify coming back for an increase, let alone matching last year's funding, when they have a reserve? It'd be fun to have that reserve for everything. It's a case of, we like to have our cake and eat it too. We're still getting a slice. At least we're still cognizant of the arts community, and we will continue to support it, or at least that. Thank you.
Councillor Thibault.
Thank you, Your Worship. Some of the points have been made, but I think one of the points that needs to be addressed, Mr. CAO, can you tell me which department in your organization was not asked to go back 2 or 3 times to reduce their budget?
On a number of occasions, every department was asked to review their dollars when Mrs. Adams and I were trying to retain the directions given by council. Obviously, we had to go back to every department within the control of this council.
As far as you know, there is not one department within your organization that was not asked to go back and cut and come back with a budget that was totally essential.
We asked all departments to review their budgets and come back with potential reductions. Some departments are a little more difficult, given the sheer size of their budget attributed to salaries. And there were some cuts that were brought forth that Mrs. Adams and I determined just weren't appropriate to take to council because we didn't think it was a good cut. But all departments are asked to come to the table.
Do you expect that when we have our discussions to start the new budget exercise, which is in the next couple of weeks, that the feedback that you will be getting is that we will be looking at increasing expenditures over the next year?
If you look at all the reductions we did in the original draft budget as a result of council direction, there were some cuts, but there were more postponements. A lot of projects were just, we'll do it next year, we'll push it back on the list. Those projects haven't gone away. We know there continues to be some other inflationary pressures or other costs of services, fuel as an example. We know there continues to be collective agreements that have to be honored. So there'll be continuing the pressures on our budget will continue for years ahead.
Given the cost of our essential skills already, or our essential services already, and the fact that places like Toronto, I hear the mayor just approved 14% over 3 years for the police force up there, do you expect that you're going to see the cost being reduced in essential services?
Clearly not. If you look at in tonight's package, there's an excellent presentation that was done by Mrs. Adams at the strategic priority session dealing with financial sustainability. In particular, there's a slide or two dealing with protections of persons and property. Those are the ones that have risen the highest over a set period of time. Other departments are suffering as a result to have to deal with those costs.
Yes, my last question to you is the departments that are considered to not be essential services specifically, are they the ones that are going to be hit as a result of the fact that the essential services costs are going up?
That's the discretionary funds that council has is for non-mandatory programs.
Right. So what you're saying to us is that we're either going to be faced with a major tax increase over the next 2 to 3 or 4 years, unless we look seriously at reductions of our overall costs.
And concentrating on one of my favorite phrases, what business are we in?
Exactly. So, and I'm fully supportive of the arts and culture. As a matter of fact, we went out and got some additional funds, a number of us around this table, to try to help organizations, and we still are doing that. But I would suspect that over the next year, this envelope is going to continue to shrink. It does not mean that we're not supportive. It just means that the people who have elected us around this table have said, you have to keep the costs down, because we cannot afford anymore. If that's the situation, and that's what we ran on and got elected on, I think it's incumbent upon us as a council to continue to focus in that particular direction. And I'm going to, even though I did not like how these numbers came out at the end of the day, it was the easiest way of trying to please as many people as possible. I would have had some maybe changes in numbers here and there, and I made those recommendations to council as well. I don't have any choice at this point in time but to support the motion and give these people the money that we've agreed upon with this motion and move on, and let's hope that we can find some additional funds next year, but at the same time, all the way through.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I just wanted some clarification as being first time on council. Last year, did the Encore seniors receive funding through our grant?
Through you, Mr. Mayor? No, they did not.
So this was their first, they were asking for the first time this year?
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you. You know, reducing the number is not a pleasant thing, but I look forward with this council in the next 4 years to work with different groups here in Cornwall and maybe develop a matching funds program that will benefit more agencies, but still using the same amount of money. There's agencies out there that are you know, willing to do some fundraising, but I think us developing a matching funds program is something that we should certainly look for in the future, so that we're able to help more groups with the same amount.
Councilor Yvette, followed by Councilor McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have to